Okay, now let's do some sound editing and do just a couple of transitions, and then we'll call it good for today. All right, so we spent all of our time in color correcting, so let's go back to our editing layout for our workspace. And we're going to just do a little bit of audio sweetening. I'm going to watch through this scene one more time right now, and what I'm going to pay attention to is over here, I'm going to pay attention to how loud this scene is, okay? So let's just watch.
Oh my gosh, Annie, how are you?
Great, how are you, Maddie?
When was the last time I saw you?
What, a couple semesters ago?
Oh my gosh. So how many credits are you doing this year?
5 classes. How are those?
Good job. You're doing level 6, so 18
Oh my
credits.
goodness, yeah.
I actually have to run to another class, so see you when I see you, I guess.
Sounds good.
Schedules. All right. Have a good day.
You.
All right. So what I saw was, and what I heard was, at certain places there's plenty of volume and we can hear it, and other places it's a little quiet. Yeah. Maddie kind of had a softer voice for a couple of her lines. There's never any point where the top went red, so that's good. That means we had room. The audio is not too loud at any point, so that's good. With dialogue, what you want is, do you see the green bars just kind of bouncing up and down? What you want is for the dialogue to be hovering somewhere between -12 and maybe -3. That's pretty good for dialogue. Anytime it bounces all the way up here into the red, that's bad. Red is bad. You don't want that. So there's a couple of things we can do. I'm going to start, this isn't a hard, fast rule, by the way, but I'm going to start with putting a compressor on our audio. Let's start with this first clip. And I'm going to start by typing in compressor. And there's a multiband compressor that I really like. If we put this onto the clip, then in the effects controls you can see audio effects, we have this multiband compressor. Then under custom setup, if we click edit, then we have this preset for broadcast, which is pretty good. Now what a compressor does is it takes the peaks and valleys and it brings them a little bit closer together to make the overall sound louder. There's a compressor can be a bit of a shot in the foot though, because if you have a lot of background noise, it'll actually amp up the background noise as well. Okay, so you have to be careful with compressors. But a nice thing that they do is they make it seem louder without pumping the volume up too much. Okay, so let's just listen to how this clip sounds compared to the next clip.
What, a couple semesters ago?
Oh my gosh. So how many credits are you doing this year?
5 classes. How are...
Okay.
Oh my gosh, Annie, how are you?
Great, how are you, Maddie?
When was the last time I saw you?
Is it doing anything?
Hey, how are you, Maddie?
When was the last time I saw you?
What, a couple semesters ago?
Let's see.
Annie, how are you?
Great, how are you, Maddie?
When was the last time I saw you?
Weird. It's not doing anything.
It's just working that good, you can't tell a difference.
Yeah, well, here, let's look at this again. Okay. Should be okay.
Annie, how are you?
Great, how are you, Maddie?
When was the last time I saw you?
What, a couple semesters ago?
Oh my gosh. So how many credits are you doing this year?
5 classes. How are
5
those?
classes. Oh my gosh, Annie, how are you?
Great, how are you, Maddie?
When was the last time I saw you? Oh my gosh, Annie, how are you?
Great, how are you, Maddie?
When was the last time I saw you?
You don't really seem to be doing much.
So, question.
Mm-hmm.
So I found a toggle on the compressor window that says targeted, and it was unchecked as default, or it was checked as default in the upper right.
Up here?
Yep, that. So by clicking that, would that then activate it for that clip?
Let's see.
Oh my gosh, Annie, how are you?
Great, how are you, Maddie?
When was the last time I saw you?
What, a couple semesters?
It's weird because it's obviously working, but it's not.
Oh my gosh, Annie, how are you?
Great, how are you, Maddie?
When was the last time I saw you?
But it's not making it sound any different to me. Maybe it is doing something. Could be the sound system. All right. So that's actually pretty good volume.
Oh my gosh, Annie, how are you?
We could, if we wanted to, go in here and, well, I need to show you this anyway. This little bar, this line that's going through the middle of this audio clip, that is a volume bar. Okay, it's a volume line. It's called an envelope. But I call it a rubber band sometimes because it's like you turn it up, you can adjust the volume of the clip over time by putting pins in this. The way you put a pin or a keyframe in this is you hold down Command and see that plus that goes next to it. If I click on that line there, then I've just added a keyframe. Now, we pretty much recorded the right channel and the left channel the same. So guess what we could do right now? We could select the duplicate audio throughout the entire thing and delete it.
Hey, how are you, Maddie?
When was the last time I saw you?
And that'll actually kind of turn the volume down. So if we go to our compressor and edit this, we can bump up the volume of this using the compressor. The overall volume, if we put that up to +3, that'll increase the volume of this entire thing.
Oh my gosh, Annie, how are you?
Great, how are you, Maddie?
When was the last time I saw you?
Let me turn this up a ton and actually see if this is doing anything.
Oh my gosh, Annie, how are you?
Great, how are you, Maddie?
Yeah, it did. Okay,
Great, how are you, Maddie?
definitely louder. All right, so I'm going to turn that up by 6 dB because it'll just kind of increase the volume of the whole thing. And check this out.
Oh my gosh, Annie, how are you?
Great, how are you, Maddie?
When was the last time I saw you?
All right, so this clip's actually pretty good. It's not getting too hot or too soft, but watch what happens if I take this compressor, if I copy this, and just quickly paste it onto everything else. I'm going to delete this second audio from this one too. Paste it onto the rest of them. Then, watch this hand slap.
Good job.
It's still fine.
Was that not what you wanted to happen?
Well, I boosted the volume by 6 dB, and that was supposed to put it over.
Maybe if you kept the other one up so that it was left and right.
You know what I think has happened? I think the Adobe programmers have helped us out by building in some limiters.
Oh.
Ew.
What, a couple semesters ago?
Oh my gosh. So how many credits are you doing this year?
5 classes, however many
5
days.
classes. I'm knocking the 15. That's good job. You're doing level 6, so.
All right. So let's go in. Let's expand this down a little bit. Let's zoom in on this clip. Let's pretend I need to turn this up because Maddie's suddenly talking softer.
I'm knocking the 15. That's good job.
Okay? So let's grab this line and let's turn it up so that we can hear Maddie talking easier.
I'm knocking the 15. That's good job.
But what does that do to the hand slap?
Blows it out.
Blows it out. Went red, right? So let's add some keyframes to this. Let's put one there, and then another one right where that hand slap happens and turn that back down. Let's bring this closer together.
Rocking the 15. Nice, good job. Doing
Okay, safer, right? Let's bring this off. So what I'm doing here is I am dropping this down for the peak where that hand slap happens, and then over time raising the volume up as the hand slap goes away. Okay,
rocking the 15. Nice, good job. Doing the whole 6. So
all right. So this whole line also is a different volume. So let's turn that up because Maddie's,
nice, good job. Doing the whole 6. So 18.
Oh my
Super busy.
goodness. Yeah.
I actually have to run to another class, so see you when I see you, I guess.
okay, so she's talking softer again here, and then when Annie starts talking, I think the microphone might have been pointed a little bit more at Annie than it was Maddie.
Or Maddie's just a mumbler.
Or Maddie's a mumbler.
I'm a mumbler.
She admitted to being a mumbler. So let's compensate for that through here and here. I'm adding 2 keyframes here so that I can, from this keyframe to this keyframe, I can turn it back down. And then from this keyframe to this keyframe, I can turn it up. But rather than turning up the volume from keyframe to keyframe, if I grab the line in between these 2 keyframes, it'll turn up the volume for that whole section. So if I add 4 keyframes and then turn the line up between, then it'll automatically adjust the volume between these 2 and these 2. Okay, so let's listen to it, see how we feel about it.
I actually have to run to another class, so see you when I see you, I guess.
Sounds good.
Schedules. All right. Have a good day.
Okay. So if you were to scrutinize this under headphones, you would hear the background noise turning up for that line, but Maddie's volume starts out at a nice audible volume here, and then as she goes through her line, she's gradually talking softer and softer. So I'm turning the volume up a little bit over time to compensate for her talking softer.
I actually have to run to another class, so see you when I see you, I guess.
Sounds good.
Schedules. All right. Have a good day.
You.
You can
Okay.
kind of hear the background noise getting louder, especially in that middle part.
Mm-hmm.
So you can hear the hallway
Yeah,
noise.
you can hear it. We can actually compensate for that using some equalization and some noise reduction. This is a lot of background noise, and that is something for a different class, a different lesson. But for now, let's just take a look at the intersection of this clip and this clip, okay? Because we have way more volume here and less volume here and here. I am just real quickly going to drag this up so that they're more connected, they're closer together. If you listen here, listen to the background audio, like the sound of the air conditioner, as we transition from this clip to this clip.
5 classes. Now we're
5
going to do this.
classes. Rocking the 15. Nice, good job. Doing the whole 6. So
Let's try to reduce the effect of that by adding a few more frames to the audio on this clip, holding down Alt and trimming that this way, and then holding down the Alt on this one and trimming it this way. So we're just adding a little bit. Hopefully we haven't added vocals that are going to compete with each other going through there. So let's listen to that.
5 classes. Now we're going
5
to do this.
classes. Rocking the 15.
So there's a little rocking the 15, so maybe that was a bad choice on that clip. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add more keyframes to the audio of this one and this one. Guess what I'm going to do?
Blend it.
I'm going to try to blend them together by attenuating that so it turns down a little bit coming out of this one and has a little bit of a introduction so that blends the background noise together a little bit to make it not a hard cut.
Classes. Now we're going
5
to do this.
classes. Rocking the 15. Nice, good job. Doing the whole 6. So
So we've got a little something there from Annie. I wonder what clip that was in.
Good job doing a little.
So let's solo this track so that we're only hearing that one. See if Annie's little blip is in that one.
You're doing a little sex.
Okay, definitely in there, right?
You're doing a little sex.
So let's trim that back. I think it's right here. That actually is nice because that can make that a hard cut. So let's see.
Good job doing a little sex.
So let's see if maybe just really, really slight.
Good job doing a little sex.
Let's just do a really slight same thing here. Just add a little bit of some fading there to try and soften the transition in the background noise.
Good job doing a little sex. 18.
So if you're trying to add some silence, add some pause in between some lines with a cut, but there's some dialogue happening off screen or noises happening off screen that you want to cover up, then you can actually take a portion of a different shot that has background noise, that has the space that you want, and put it underneath, and then use this same technique to soften the transition so you can actually add space, add background noise underneath. Because if you just cut the audio, then you're left with a blank space where there's nothing, and that's obviously not going to sound good. As people are listening to it, they're going to be like, wait, the audio dropped out for a second. So what you do is you take a second of background noise from another clip and you put it in underneath, but then this is called attenuation. You attenuate the beginning and end with a softening of the volume coming in and out. Okay, so let's see if there's anywhere else that we can maybe just listen to. Is this jarring at the end when they suddenly start talking to each other louder? So let's just do this again here at the end and just bring that down a little bit so that maybe it's not quite as abrupt of a change in volume.
Sounds good.
Schedules. All right. Have a good day.
Still kind of there. Okay, so let's listen to the whole scene overall.
Oh my gosh, Annie, how are you?
Great, how are you, Maddie?
When was the last time I saw you?
What, a couple semesters ago?
Oh my gosh. So how many credits are you doing this year?
5 classes. How are
5
you?
classes. You rocking the 15. Good job doing the whole 6. 18.
Oh my
Super busy.
goodness, yeah.
I actually have to run to another class, so see you when I see you, I guess.
Sounds good.
Schedules. All right. Have a good day.
Okay, I purposefully left this one the way it is because look, we've got different volume here than we do here. Okay, plus we're kind of cutting in on Annie's line slightly. There's like right in the middle of her, yeah. Okay, I'm going to try and do this using a crossfade, but I need to teach you guys how to do a crossfade first. So let's get into transitions, and then we'll come back to this. Let's just start by adding a crossfade to the beginning. So it'll fade up from black, okay? The key command for adding a transition, the default transition, is Command D for default transition. So with the edge of this first clip selected, if I hit Command D, it'll add a cross dissolve. You could do Command D for dissolve, but it's actually for the default transition. Okay, so let's go into our effects panel and let's get rid of this compressor type in. And if we go to video transitions, twirl down that folder, twirl down dissolve, you'll see cross dissolve has this box around it, this highlighted box. That means that the cross dissolve is set as the default transition. So you can change this. If you are going to use star wipes over and over and over, then you can find your star wipe and right click on it, which would be this wipe. Actually, it's Iris. Iris Diamond. If you wanted to use that over and over and over, to save time, you can right-click on it and say, Set Selected as Default Transition. Then anytime you hit Command D, you'll do an Iris Diamond wipe. That's if you really love those things. So I'm going to go back to cross dissolve, and I'm going to set as default transition because traditionally your cross dissolve is the most commonly used transition other than a cut. So here's how the dissolve is affected to the beginning of this. It's a fade in from black.
Oh my gosh, Annie, how are you?
But did you hear the sudden introduction of the background sound in the middle of the transition? If you do that on your audio, oops, you can also apply default transition to the audio, which in this case is Command Alt D. No. Command Shift D. Okay. So if you want to apply the transition to the audio, it's Command Shift D, which is a dissolve, which basically just fades it in. Command D does it to the video. As you saw when I was right-clicking on it, if the entire clip is selected and I apply default transitions on the audio, let's see, in this intersection, apply default transitions, then it'll do it. Okay, so you can use your right-click and it'll add it to the audio and the video at that intersection. If I have a couple of clips selected and I want to fade in and fade out and do the transition to both of them, if the entire clip is selected and I hit Command D, it's supposed to, yeah. Okay, so I had to have all three of these selected. So guess what'll happen if I select all the clips and hit Command D? Lots of crossfades, right? Okay. That's probably not what we want to go for, but you can do it. So if you're doing a slideshow and you just want a fade to go in between each picture, select do the timing, select every single one of them, and then hit Command D, and you've done transition on all of them. All right, let's take a look at, let's listen to this again.
Oh my gosh, Annie, how are you?
Great.
So that sounded a little bit better, right? But take a look at this transition. It's extending itself out over when Maddie starts talking. Transitions can act a little bit like clips. You can trim them to make them shorter. See, if I move my mouse over the edge of this transition, my icon changes, my mouse changes. If I click on that, I can bring that in and make it shorter. Same with the video one. So by default, this transition is 1 second and 5 frames. The way you can change how long you want your default transition to be is you can go up to your Premiere Pro Preferences, and under General, you can set your video transition default duration to frames or seconds. I'm going to change mine to seconds and make it 0.5 seconds. Now, if I click OK, I'm going to delete this. I'm going to select the edge of this again and hit Command D. Now that defaults at a ½ second long. Okay. I personally am more of a fan of a ½ second transition than a full second transition. Question?
So for mainly for the audio, why would you use that transition instead of just adding a new point?
Time saving. because it actually takes less time to hit Command-Shift-D than it does to add 2 keyframes and turn the volume down. One's not more correct than the other. It's just 2 different ways to do the same thing.
Do you have more control over the keyframe way though?
You do have more control because this is a line. You know what you can do to a line?
Make curves.
You can curve it. So if you use your pen tool or even hold down Command with your selection tool, you can actually add a curve to that line.
With some handles.
Put some handles on it and curve it. So, exactly. See that? Can make it a pretty wonky line. So that's the only reason why you would want to use keyframes. The real reason why you'd want to use keyframes versus a transition. Because a transition is going to be by default, it's going to be a straight line. There's not really anything you can do about that line. Other than maybe change the properties of it from constant power to something else. A different transition. So, good questions. All right. So, one thing, you can add handles to all of these keyframes down in here by holding down Command and adding handles. Then you can change how quickly those change. Or you can adjust how quickly those attenuate from one to the other.
Sounds good.
Schedules. All right.
Sounds good. That was an accent. All right. So this, same thing with this one. You can add the default audio transition, which I keep doing the wrong key command, and just have that fade out as they're walking away.
Ew.
And then add the default transition to that. And then just have it fade out to black at the end.
Fade to black.
Fade to black as the guy's walking in the scene. Not that we're ever going to do this, but let's take a look at the intersection of these 2 clips, because I need to have it in the audio, but I'm going to show you how to adjust the timing of a transition in clips also. So I'm going to right click here and apply default transitions. That way I can try to soften the audio transition, but then if I
That was like a romantic montage. It's like Anne's thinking of Maddie.
So if I grab either side of this transition and drag it out to lengthen the transition to make it longer, speaking of romance, to do really, really slow fade, it does it off both sides. See how it's extending both sides out simultaneously? Well, it's like, wait, no. My cut is where I want the transition to start. I don't want the transition to be in the middle because I really want the transition to start there. Well, the way you do that is not to drag this out sideways. That just makes the transition longer. You can actually grab the transition itself and drag it side to side to adjust the timing. So that, let's say I actually want that transition to start on that frame. Well, if I drag this to the right, I can't drag it any farther than where that intersection is. So that'll start the transition there.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I actually have to run to another class.
Okay. So that was weird, right? Because the transition is like,
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
I actually have to run to another class, so
all right. That's how you adjust the beginning and end of a transition and the length of the transition. We can really just make this super long.
so 18
Oh my
release.
goodness. Yeah.
I
Okay. Now, why would you put a transition on a scene like this?
You're bored.
if you watch this scene with that transition, what in your mind is happening as a viewer? What's happening?
More time.
Time is passing, right? So if you do that, it's going to look like they've
And talk.
been
saying that
talking
for a
for quite a while. That's why you would put a transition in the middle of a scene like this. Because usually transitions denote some sort of passage of time or an evolution of some sort, okay? Usually it has to do with time. So yeah, we can make it look like these two sit here and they have this conversation for who knows how long, and then Maddie says, I actually have to get going.
If you add in the nighttime effects, you can make it seem like they've been sitting there.
do a day for night color correction. Wow, these two sat here.
And then
We're
go back to
awkward.
day. And then go back
Yeah.
to day.
Yeah. Anyway, let's.
18.
Oh, my
Super busy.
goodness, yeah.
I actually have to run to another class.
Okay, so this conversation was a lot longer than 30 seconds. If we take that transition out, the conversation is 30 seconds. Okay, so think about that when you're thinking about whether or not you should add a transition. I've had a lot of people make the mistake of, well, that cut was kind of rough, so maybe if I just add a crossfade, it won't seem so rough. But then it's like, wait, what's happening in this scene? Did a bunch of time just pass, or are we compensating for two clips that don't fit together very well? You know? All right, so I'm just going to try shortening the audio transition here so that it really is only like 4 frames long. That way I don't have to bring this audio clip down on the track below, extend them out, and add the keyframes. If I just do a really, really short audio transition, sometimes you can get away with covering up the difference in the audio background sounds with a really, really short transition.
Oh, my
Super busy.
goodness, yeah.
I actually have to run to another class, so
Plus, it allows some audio attenuation over Annie's yeah, so it kind of makes them fit together a little better.
18.
Oh, my
Super busy.
goodness, yeah.
I actually
Okay. All right. So for the next, that's interesting, little error. All right. So for the next part of this assignment, you need to add some color correction, add a fade in and fade out. Unless you're going to try and make it seem like these two have talked forever, then add a crossfade in the middle somewhere. Only if it's going to make sense. And then adjust audio levels using some keyframes to compensate for extremes in changes of audio volume to make it sound like the whole scene has one steady volume. Okay? So there's really only 3 tasks. The color correction is the biggest. Color correction and audio are the biggest tasks, but yeah, there's really only 3 tasks for the next assignment. Okay, any questions? Okay, I'm going to stop the screen recording for now. Then we can talk.